everyone. Today we're going to work on a nice little field painting. It's grasses in the field. We're going to be working with a fairly warm palette. It is October right now as I'm filming this, and we're going to try and pick up some of those nice warm oranges and reds and golds in our artwork today. I hope you enjoy the class, and if you have any questions, certainly send me an email and I will help you out. So if you're familiar with my artwork at all, you'll know that I've got several paintings that I've done of grass in the field. We're going to do that again today. What we're going to do though, however, is a much smaller one than what I've been doing. This is a 10 by 10. It's a stretched canvas, and I've gessoed the canvas with a tinted yellow gesso, and we should be ready to go at that point. I'm not going to be doing any drawing. I'm going to instead draw with my brush. It doesn't really matter which color you choose to kind of sketch in your image. I'm going to use a bright yellow. I just kind of want to put in where I want some of these main grasses to go. You can do whatever kind of composition you're looking for. I like to have at least 3 main characters in the art, and then everybody else are sort of the supporting characters. And in this one, I'm going to have my light coming from the left side. So the left top corner. The light's going to be over here, shining this way. So everything over here will be a little bit darker. For these initial branches, or strands of grass, stalks of grass, I'm going to actually use some additional walnut oil. I'm going to mix in with paint to thin it down. We get a little more fluid so it flows a little more easily. So I've got my main characters in, and I'm going to add in some additional little grasses here. When it comes to doing the grass, there's really no right or wrong. In general, you want to think about if you've got any wind happening in your composition. So most of the grass is going to bend in the direction away from the wind. You've ever spent time lying in a field staring at the grass? You'll know that it does come in different shapes and sizes. The grass will go in various directions. We're still just using the same shade right now, same color on our brush. We're just kind of marking in some of the grasses. Some of these will get covered over. Some of them will be added to. And vary the size and the shape. Some of them will be shorter, some of them will be taller, some will be thick, some will be thin. You want to have some nice variety going on in here. And if that means that you need to change your brush, which I just did, change your brush size. Tops here, I want to make a little bit lighter and brighter up top. Because the sun does reach up top. Obviously, because the sun is above us. And further down here, it's going to be darker because the sun can't reach in there as well. Things end up being in shadow. This initial stage is just kind of marking things in. I'm going to switch up the color now. I'm going to add a little more red into my yellow. Got more of an orange. Darker orange. I'm going to add some of that in. And I'm going to start using these strands of grass that are already in here. Go over top a few of them. I'm not covering them completely. I'm still allowing some of that yellow to come through. Remember, we decided there was 3 main ones here that we wanted to have as our main characters in this story. So those 3 main characters I'm working on. I seem to have lost the 3rd one. Let's do this one here. as our third character. I'm going to add some raw umber into that orange that I've been using. Start to darken in some of these areas in between the strands. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to go back through again. So it's okay if you're covering up some of your grass. Remember how we said on the right hand side the sun's not getting through this side as well. The sun is over here. So this side is going to be considerably darker. So I'm continuing to thin out my paint with my oil. We're going to have lots of layers happening here with the grass. If I keep it thin, and I'm not going to have issues with things getting too muddy. And resist the temptation to be too fussy about this. It's okay if we're covering things up. We're going to add things back in. So don't be worried. Try to stick to just the three colors. I'm using the umber, I'm using a yellow, and I'm using a red. And you can use whatever yellow or red that you have on hand. You don't have to use the suggested cadmium red, cadmium yellow that I like to use. Any yellow and red will work because they're all going to give you variations of a gold in an orange when you start blending them. This top area, there's more light coming up here, so I'm going to allow the brown to be more of a reddish brown, just sort of resonating the sunlight coming through. As you can see, the oil that I'm using is very thin. Almost like a watercolor because I watered it down so much with my walnut oil. It makes the paint less opaque and more transparent. Being a little more careful going around my main characters here, these two, just because I don't want to lose them entirely. We will find them again as we get closer to the end and create more drama in around where they are. And I could use a larger brush for this as well. It would go faster. If you decide to use a larger brush, try to find one that's fairly new, that's got a nice sharp edge like this one. So you can find your lines and create lines and go really tight into other corners. It just makes life a little easier. I'm not worried about the brush strokes showing at this point either, because again, a lot of what we're doing right now is going to get covered. Basically, we're just covering the canvas. We're blocking in, but in a different way. It's a different way of creating a blocking in. Up in this section, I want to have it mostly more of a yellow gold, higher up here. going to add some white in here as well. A little bit different kind of method that from what we've been doing in the past. Take this lighter color, bring it through here as well. Okay, so we have most of the canvas covered at this point. So I've changed the position of my artwork. I'm now sitting. So I've changed the position of my artwork. I've decided I want to sit down for this. The rest of what I'm doing here. I find sometimes changing where you are, what you're looking at, how you're looking at something can really affect the final outcome. So right now I've got a softer brush. It's just a small, softer brush. And I'm going in and I'm just softening down these background areas, because most of this is going to be background. Just blending them into each other a little bit. The fact that we use so much oil really helps this process, because this paint is quite fluid still, and it's going to blend in quite nicely actually. And give us that nice grassy feeling. Always have your rag handy. You can wipe off your brush as you're going along. See all this area now where we were initially worried about the brush strokes. That's all getting blended through. You didn't need to worry about that at all. Because essentially that's just going to all disappear. For something like this, for this kind of composition, normally I would work a little more slowly. However, for the purposes of these instructional videos, don't want the video to go on too long. And I could time lapse, but then sometimes you miss watching the technique on how the brush is moving when there's a time lapse going on. So there's going to be a little bit of time lapse, but the majority of this is going to be in real time. And again, as always, I'm just the pressure that I'm using between the brush and the canvas, very slight. I do have larger brushes I could use for this, but I still want to keep some of the look of the grass. So if I use, say, for example, a big brush like this, I'm going to lose, and I'll even show you with the cleaner one, I'm going to lose that texture. I still want some of that texture. You see how that really smudges it out a lot? I don't want to lose all of that texture. I still want to keep some of it. Now, as you're going through, you can see lighter areas and darker areas. And you can make decisions based on what happens when you start blending things. How dark you want an area to stay and how light you want another area to stay. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to take some white and some yellow. And this time the paint is a little bit thicker because the rule is thick over thin. So we're going to go back in to these main characters. Put those highlights back in so you can see that more prominently. This one up here as well. And then our third, we decided was over here. And then we'll add some dark. Back into darker areas. As we've talked about before, when you start to add the dark back in, it makes the lighter areas lighter. Just adding a little bit of Prussian blue. Adding some Prussian blue in to my dark brown, my raw umber, just to darken down that area a little bit more. I just want some of these shadows to be a little bit cooler. So in order to do that, I add the blue in. And really you're just, as you can see, you're just really kind of playing around. With the shades and the colors. I'm just imagining myself lying in the grass, looking through the tall grasses, the light coming in from my left side. I'm just kind of depicting what that would look like. I'm putting some of this dark over here, but not as much, just because, as I said before, the light is coming from this direction. This area here, blend it back through. This is one of our main characters. You find when your paint is as wet as what it is right now, it really gives you the opportunity to play. And these edges here, we thought we lost them, but we didn't actually lose them. They were still there. And basically what I'm doing now is I'm taking this brush is relatively dry. Didn't have any paint on it when I started it. I'm just going through in between these dark areas where it's still light. And what it does simultaneously is it softens the edge where the light and dark areas meet. Blends them a little bit. And maintains that dramatic effect that we're working on here, slowly but surely. So at this point right now, I'm not putting any more paint on. I'm just going through these areas, making decisions about how much I want to blend it, how much I want to keep it a harder edge. This section here, we've pretty much lost this, which is okay, because basically what that indicates to me when I'm looking at it is that that little section is further back in the distance. This one here is the most prominent, sort of our main character, and then we've got the two supporting characters here. So this little composition is fairly simple. We can work further if we wanted to on defining more of the darks and highlighting more of the lights. However, I kind of like the way things are flowing right now. They're sort of going across this way here, and we've got sort of, again, the diagonal going across here, the shorter grasses going up to the taller grasses. We've got our three main characters here, this larger grass here, this one here, and then the smaller one across. We've got a nice dark area of the shadows, got the lighter area of the light, and we've got some of the light that's catching through those shadows. So it's giving us some pretty interesting things to look at. I'm going to finish it off with a signature. As I always mention to everyone, it's always a good idea. Sign your artwork. Be proud of what you have achieved and what you have created. And there we go. I hope you enjoyed the class. As usual, if you have any questions or comments or any problems along the way, send me an email and I will respond to you within the 24-hour period. Thanks so much. Bye for now.